Dialogue? I'll talk with you. What's dialogue? You support the right to murder a baby? Why are you pro-choice?
I've tried to convince him. He doesn't believe that.
Why are you pro-choice?
He doesn't believe that a fetus is like a person.
Oh, he used to be one. In the
Not a
world.
dog.
We don't need to discuss this.
He used to be one, right?
Yeah.
Why are you pro-choice? Come talk with me. Defend the pro-choice position.
Watch out.
Jack, you too.
Yeah, but defend the position. Defend.
Can you defend the pro-choice position?
We're having a debate?
I'm open to dialogue. Always am.
Okay.
So why are you pro-choice?
Am I?
No, why are you?
Oh, because I don't feel that it's murder before its brain is formed.
So what do you base that on, what you just said?
What do I base it on?
Yeah.
Just the fact that it's this big.
So based on size.
And a few other things. Like that it can't do anything.
So what does that matter though? Because there are people in the world who they're limited in their function. There are people in wheelchairs who can't stand up. There are people who don't have the mental capacity of most other people.
Mm-hmm.
So should someone be murdered based on their capacity to think, their capacity to reason? Maybe if they're born with one arm, should they be murdered? And who determines that? Because a lot of people in the world aren't fully developed. Like you're not as developed as you would be if you're 80 years old.
Well, they're more developed than like a fetus.
Well, do you know what fetus is? What that means?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Like it's a baby, like a. I think they left us. Like a person that's not born yet.
Yeah, it's Latin for a little one, but science and technology have shown beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's a human being from the moment of conception, of fertilization. Even abortionists know that. Even abortionists have admitted that they're killing people, and so it's one thing to deny the personhood of the preborn. There are people who are pro-abortion who say, yeah, I know it's a murder, but they'd still defend it. So I just want you to, anyone who's pro-choice, to acknowledge what you're supporting. And that's partly why I have the signs out here, is because if you're pro-choice, you support the lower image, you support doing that to a child. And that's just being honest with what you support. And I'm assuming you've seen these images before, because a lot of people have.
Our school's pro-life. Mm-hmm.
Do you go to Catholic school?
Bennett. Yep.
Bennett, okay.
It was actually pro-life week.
You what?
It was pro-life week this week.
It was, okay. So are there other students here that are pro-choice, pro-abortion?
Few.
What, as a pro-choice, pro-abortion person, what do you think about these images? That's what abortion is. I have too. I have helpers.
Yeah.
So are you okay with defending doing that to a child, to a helpless little child? When that was not the child who was murdered, but used to be in the same place, so did I, so did he. And this culture said it was okay to do that to you, and to me, and to him.
I always just think that people die out here anyway.
So out here?
Babies, elderly. So it's okay to kill people, just like they die anyway.
But should that give someone the right to murder someone in cold blood?
It's because they die anyway. It happens anyway, and I don't see nothing against you, but I don't see a lot of people like pushing for that around the world to completely stop. Like
pushing for the end of abortion?
Just killing in general.
Pushing for the end of killing?
Yeah.
Well, you've had some movements arise, like, I don't know much about it, but Black Lives Matter, they've come against, killing, murdering black people, and you've had other groups.
Those are kind of biased, though.
But who determines the right to kill somebody, to murder somebody? God does. And he says, you shall not murder, the sixth commandment. He does not give us the right to murder somebody. There are situations where you have to kill somebody, self-defense, but that's rare. It does happen, but that's rare. But with abortion, you're killing somebody, you're murdering somebody when they've done no wrong. They've committed no crime, and the preborn, they're totally defenseless. They cannot run, they cannot defend themselves at all. And so it's actually the worst crime imaginable, is taking their life, and it's always unjust because no unborn child can't commit a crime. And so and do you know how many preborn children we've murdered in the last 45 years?
Probably around 1 billion.
Well, in the world,
You think?
in America, we've murdered over 60 million, and that's just surgical abortion. It doesn't include birth control, Plan B. It doesn't include in vitro fertilization. So I mean, it's been roughly estimated probably over 200 million, and it continues every day. Tomorrow morning, more children will be murdered in abortion mills across the state, and so I mean, I would just challenge you to really think about, does this please God? Murdering a child, supporting the murder of a child, because you're in the midst of the worst Holocaust in our world, a Holocaust that dwarfs Nazi Germany. Because the Nazis, they would have loved to murder as many people as we murdered, and they stopped after what I don't know the exact numbers, but their Holocaust ended. Ours has not ended, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of history where you support what's going on to children in the womb. So I mean, that's because I thought about that too. Is what side of history will just anybody be on in general? Like, because when the history books are written, are they going to say this man took a bold stance against mass murder, against the genocide? Just like in Nazi Germany, only a few took a bold stance, only a few. And today, if you do that, you probably won't go to prison. You can do this without being arrested. You're not going to be killed. You're not going to be murdered. And still, so few people do it. It doesn't make much sense to me. But I mean, I don't know if that's helped you to see this for what it is yet, but I mean, God may have to do work more. Maybe He is working in your heart about that. I mean, for me, when I found out about this Holocaust, a light bulb went on. They're murdering people. I got to do something about it. But so I mean, I've never had the mindset it's okay to murder people. So I know some people have changed their minds. Like, you know, the co-founder of NARAL. You're familiar? Are you familiar with NARAL?
No.
National Abortion Rights Action League. Well, that's what they're known as now. The co-founder, Bernard Nathanson, he was one of the people responsible for bringing this Holocaust to America. He actually became a pro-life activist because of ultrasound, because he saw the people he was murdering. And this was back in the 70s, so before we had much better technology, he saw the child in the womb, and that affected him dearly. And he soon after stopped murdering people. And so I mean, a lot of people today, a lot of young people, they're seeing ultrasounds of themselves, and they're realizing this is cold-blooded murder, and we need to do something about it. So I would just exhort you to really rethink your position on it. That is it really okay to murder a human being? And if it is, who says it is? Because God says it isn't. He says you shall not murder. Only He has the right to determine who lives and who dies, not us.
What would you say to someone who doesn't believe in God?
You mean like someone who says they're an atheist, or?
Just
Well, I would say what the book of Romans chapter 1 says, that they're suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. They know God exists because you cannot have all this creation, all the evidence that we have before our eyes, human DNA, even just the complexity of how all of us are made. I would just tell them, just as it would be insane to say that any of these buildings made themselves out of nothing, they just popped up out of thin air.
Nothing non-living can create something living.
Well, you have to have intelligence.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would ask them, okay, if you don't believe in God, you got to believe. I mean, it's common sense to believe that an intelligent designer created something that's intelligent. It just cannot pop out of nowhere. And if people may say, "Oh, I believe in an intelligent designer, but not God," I'd ask them, why is it so hard to believe in God? A lot of people, it's probably just because they don't want to give account to God. Once they acknowledge that God exists, they have to give an account to Him for their lives.
The fact that religion exists is kind of it's evidence that there is an instinct, there's an inborn knowledge that we know that there's something beyond. Even if other religions are false, obviously, but it's still, you have a common idea that there's something else to this?
Well, you have a conscience. You have God's law. God's law is written on the heart of every person out here. Every person, without exception. Everybody out here knows it's wrong to murder somebody. They know it's wrong to steal. They know it's wrong to rob a bank, to commit grand larceny. So I, like someone who says I don't believe in God, I'm like, okay, where'd that come from? That belief. It's like I'd ask him, where's Adolf Hitler? They say he's in hell.
Right.
How do you know? And where do you base that belief on? How do you know? Like they would say I don't believe in hell, then they'd say Adolf Hitler's in hell. It's like, well, you just judged him based on what, you know? It's like, okay, where's Mother Teresa? They'd say she's in heaven. Well, it's like, where do you base that on?
Yeah.
So we have morals that we base them on something. So it's like, where do we get those morals from? So we all believe in God. Some of us suppress it because we don't want to give an account to a perfect God. So I mean, that's kind of a long answer, I guess. But
What's your name, by the way?
hey, Nicholas.
I'm Mark. We're the ones who are talking on.
Oh, okay.
Messenger, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
That's I'm glad you stopped to talk with me because when I'm out on the streets, I encourage people a lot to stop and talk with me, park their cars if they're in a car, and come talk with me, no matter how much they disagree, hate me being out here or whatnot. Because I'm like, if I'm wrong, come prove to me I'm wrong. Because I'm wrong on some things, we all are. And I always tell them I tell them I appreciate that you came and talked with me because most people don't. They don't bother. They just, in their minds, I'm wrong, they're right, in discussion. You know, and they're judging me. You know, and they don't even realize it. And but I don't know if this has affected your thinking on it. Maybe not. Maybe you still think that it's okay to murder people in the womb. I don't know. I would just. Well, what are your thoughts now on these images and what we're doing out here?
They're definitely gruesome.
Yeah. Murder's always gruesome.
Yeah, I still don't really. Just as a personal opinion, I don't really consider someone.
You know what?
I'm not completely for abortion,
Okay.
in general. I'm for it before the brains form. So what's that, like 24 weeks, something like that?
Well, I know you have a heartbeat at 21 days. Brains form. I'm actually not 100% sure when that occurs. It's hard to keep all these facts straight in your mind.
Yeah.
But what do you base that on? That it's not a human being until the brains form. What do you base that on? What facts? What you base it on? What they taught you in school? Do you base it on what you read in the book?
Well, I mean, animals can't live without brains. Well, I know there's some, but I just don't really consider it human if it doesn't have a full formed brain. And then afterwards, I'd consider it a human. I'd say you probably shouldn't kill this thing.
Well, what if it is a human being before the brains develop?
What was that?
What if it is a human being, a person like you and me, before the brains develop, that they're just as alive as you and I are?
What would differentiate that?
Well, no. Well, what I'm
What
saying,
would make them alive?
just that their life existed when the sperm and the egg met, the fertilization of the egg.
What if you're wrong about the whole brain thing?
What's that?
What if he's wrong about the brain being like the
Being formed?
of being like when life starts?
Oh, no, I'm just saying that animals, like humans are animals, so and animals have
Well,
brains.
humans are made in the image of God. Animals are not. That's the big distinction. We're made in the image of God. That's why it's trying to kill us. Animal, what?
Like, no, scientifically, though. Like, humans are animals. Would you say that? Would you agree with that scientifically?
Animals in what sense?
Well, they're plants, animals, bacteria, algae.
What sets us apart, though, from I guess just everyday animals is, unlike animals who are completely driven by instinct, we actually have the ability. What makes us so special is the fact that we can actually choose to act against our gut instinct, and our gut instinct a lot of the time is something that offends God, is something that is evil, and the fact that we can make that choice sets us apart from, say, a monkey or a tiger, whatever, just any animal. It's how I guess I would.
That little booklet gives you information on when the brains develop, when this happens, when this process happens.
Okay.
And because I still have to look at it myself because it's a lot of facts, and it's another that because the human being is not fully developed for a long time. Like a 2-year-old is not as fully developed as a 10-year-old, so we should not be allowed to murder the 2-year-old, right?
But they both have fully formed brains.
But they're not. But neither of them actually are fully developed, because the 10-year-old is still growing. So should we murder somebody because they're not fully developed yet?
What do you consider fully developed?
Well, I mean, you have everything functioning. You have everything that you're going to have. I guess a 10-year-old is not as big as they're going to get. They're not fully developed in the sense that.
So if you're saying if someone's fully developed, they have everything
Well,
functioning.
what I mean is, like, a 2-year-old, they're still growing. Their brain is still developing, right?
Isn't everyone still growing? Are we all still aging?
Yeah, I mean, you're aging until the day you die. Well, like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, they're still growing in size. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, our brains develop until we're.
Are you guys familiar with this area?
A little bit.
I'm looking for Empire. Empire, the restaurant.
Yeah, Brian was talking about it before. Brian? Sorry, no.
But we don't murder people based on their development. Like, there are people who cannot survive without an oxygen tank. So should we be able to kill them?
But aren't our brains still forming every day until we die?
I mean,
The more we learn, doesn't our brain change?
I mean, our brain does change for the good or bad. So, like, based on, like, developments for the good or bad, based on how we're growing in size and development, how, I mean, you know, you could lose your arm tomorrow. You know, you could lose. Things happen all the time to our development for the good or bad. So, what determines whether someone should be killed or not? Whether they're a human being. But we know this because in the womb, when the sperm and egg made a human being comes into existence. They're a very small human being, which makes it easy to discriminate against them. It makes it easy to write their life off because they don't look like us. They're very small, a very small human being, but they're still a human being made in the image of God. And if you take that person's life, that's murder.
But even if they're not completely made yet in the image of God?
No, you're completely made in the sense that you're made in the image of God as much as you would be if you're 80 years old. You just in that case, in that process, you're not fully developed yet. You're still growing, and while you're in the womb, God's still making you. He's still forming you. You're a human being as much as you would be if you're an elderly person. It's just God's still making you. He's still working on you, basically, like a potter works on a piece of clay.
Is he still making us every day though?
I mean, he's still working on us as far as.
Alright, let's see. Are you going to Brian's house? Yeah. Alright, I'll be there.
Yeah, he works on us as far as like you said, we age, and we maybe we get smarter, maybe we, I don't know if we get dumber, but in the womb, like, and after a child's born, they get bigger, their brains develop more and more. Like in those early years, that's when you want to reach them with whatever knowledge they're going to get, because that's when their brain's really developing to where they can attain a lot of knowledge. Later, they're not going to have that ability as much. But like a 2-year-old, they're not nearly as developed as a 5 or 10-year-old, so we shouldn't be allowed to kill them based on that. And that's what a lot of people, they say it's okay to murder a person in the womb because they're not as developed, they're not as their heart hasn't started beating yet, or they can't think. Well, there are people in the world that can't think. I mean, politicians, they can't think very well. You have
people that are, brain dead, so to speak.
I mean, I don't want to sound too negative here, but look at most Americans. They don't think for themselves. I mean, we don't read anymore. Most Americans don't read. I mean, a lot of people in the world, they don't read anymore. So should they be killed because, who determines these things? Well, God does. He determines who lives, who dies, and He has not given us the ability to do this to a child.